I wasn't doing $500,000 or $800,000 in 12 months because I didn't know what I was doing when I was wholesaling. I just didn't know how to scale that, how to get myself out of the day-to-day of the business, because that was always my goal.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. This is Bill Allen, and today I've got an incredible show for you guys. We've got a wholesaler and flipper from Canada. So doing a lot of high volume wholesaling and flipping in lots of different areas outside of his main metro. And he's been growing and scaling his business over the past few years. I got a chance to meet him at Flip Hacking Live a couple of years ago where he joined our 8-figure flipping group. And he's just an incredible guy. Got to spend some time in South Africa with him on safari. He's got a lot of things going on in his personal life right now, which I'm sure he's going to share. And so I want to welcome to the podcast, Luc Boiron. Luc, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me on, Bill.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it today because we've just come out of this series right after Gino Wickman's podcast that we did, and we went through the 6 essential traits of a entrepreneur and kind of asking that question of ourselves, like, are you an entrepreneur? And going through all of these different traits that we know that we need to have in order to hit the levels. And there's not many people in the group, I think, that are as aggressive and entrepreneurial as you. So it's exciting to kind of transition there. And what I want to talk about a little bit today, and I'm sure we'll dive into it, is growing a team and what that looks like in today's environment. So a lot of people are asking me, hey, you got this big payroll, got a lot of overhead, and I was growing and scaling for a long time and then kind of hit this almost freeze right now. We're recording this on April 20th, so it'll go out in a few weeks, but everything that's happening with the coronavirus. So I'm sure we'll get into that. But before we do, let's start with, tell everybody a little bit about you and kind of your background and how you got into real estate, and then how you kind of found us at 7 Figure Flipping.
All right. So I grew up in a real estate family. My dad was a commercial real estate agent, self-taught. He quit school when he was 14, left home when he was 16, and came to Canada from France and got into real estate, became a real estate agent, commercial real estate, invested in commercial real estate. So in 2007, when I was 18, I had saved up enough money and I bought my first rental property. And that was when I started undergrad. So through undergrad, I was fixing up the property. I was renting it out by the room. I eventually sold it. At the time I started law school, I did a joint program, did my law school and my MBA. And then when I finished law school, I got called to the bar and I didn't want to stay in law. So, I always thought that I needed to have a profession so that I could buy rentals on the side, because that was the only way I saw as being a real estate investor. But then I realized if I wanted to be an active real estate investor, I could flip houses and make it a full-time job. And I was so passionate about real estate. I grew up surrounded by it. I loved it. It was what I wanted to do. So I got into flipping houses. And I was listening to, this podcast, just understanding, because I didn't know anyone who flipped. Maybe people bought a house every few years and renovated it while living in there and living in flips, but I didn't know anyone who really flipped a lot of houses. When you hear about Justin formerly, flipping 100 houses, you're like, how's that possible? That's not possible. So I was listening to this, trying to understand how I could do this and how I could do it in Canada, because I have my own limiting beliefs. I'm like, Americans, they can do it there, but this would never work in Canada. So, I had my own limiting beliefs to go through, but I got into this. So full-time in 2016, end of 2016, started flipping houses. I think I flipped about 17 in my first year. And then I started wholesaling as well, because I was never the best project manager. So I was managing my own flips. The accounting was terrible. Things were taking a lot longer than they should have. We were making money because I was good at buying the houses. And so I started wholesaling a few. And my first ever wholesale deal, I wholesaled it for $70,000.
Whoa, 70,000?
Yeah, my first wholesale deal. I had 7 renos on the go, couldn't handle another flip. And I almost didn't go to the appointment. It was my wife, Jess, who's she's now pregnant with our first child. She was like, no, this sounds like a good deal. Go on the appointment, go buy the house. So I did, bought it, got a great deal. And then next week I found someone who wanted to buy it, and they paid me $70,000 for the contract. So that was my first wholesale deal.
Okay, well, I want to ask you a question about that because I remember my first wholesale deal, I made 10,000. I actually made 9,900. So I used a trick back then where I could get the assignment fee off the HUD for $100. My lawyer worked something out. And so like at that time, I didn't even think it was possible. You talked about limiting beliefs, right? I didn't think it was possible at that time for me to wholesale a deal for 70,000. So how did you know that you could do that and you didn't settle for 10 or 20 or just text your best friend and say, hey, would you buy this for $20,000 more?
Yeah, I think I had bought some deals from other wholesalers. Not paid anything close to that. The thing was, I knew I got a really good deal, and I actually asked the guy for 100 grand. And in his mind, it was also sticker shock. Both of us. I was like, this is impossible, but let me ask for it. And so we sat down at McDonald's and negotiated, and I agreed to take 70. And I would definitely get, like nowadays with our dispositions process, I'd probably get over 100,000 for it. He flipped it and made over 100,000. So the deal was there. It was a very good deal.
Okay, so you didn't know that you couldn't do that. So you just kind of went for it, went all out, and it ended up at $70,000.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so you said you were listening to the podcast, and then what? You came to Flip Hacking Live, and that's how you kind of got introduced to us?
Yeah, so I was flipping, I was wholesaling, I was trying to figure everything out on my own because I've been so skeptical of all the groups, all the gurus, I went to one of those weekend pitch things with, what was the Flipper Flop Stars? They advertised with them. I went on a Saturday and it was just a huge pitch fest. Everyone was running to the back of the room and I'm like, what are people thinking? Why would they sign up for this stuff? It's so obviously like just not genuine. And so I was just super skeptical of everything. And I had an acquisition rep, I had an assistant. We were doing like right before I went to Flip Hacking Live, we were somewhere between $500,000 and $800,000 in the previous 12 months in gross profits. And I knew I wanted to grow, but I didn't know how to do it alone. And so when I left, my wife said, don't let them convince you to join. Like you're not going to get conned into joining some group. And when I was there, I called her and I said, this is the real deal. I really want to join this so I can grow. Because that's what it was. I wasn't doing $500,000 or $800,000 in 12 months because I didn't know what I was doing when I was wholesaling. I just didn't know how to scale that, how to get myself out of the day-to-day of the business, because that was always my goal, and that's still working towards, but in a much better position now. I was working my ass off all the time, constantly working, and I didn't know how to get out of that and how to hire the right people because I was just guessing when I was hiring. Actually, when I was there, I knew going there that I had to fire the current assistant I had. So I really only had one good person on my team, my acquisition rep, who's still with me today. And so, yeah, I went there. I could tell, all the coaches were just such like real, genuine people. They're not trying to scam you. The biggest thing for me too is all these people who are coaching because they can't do. It's like you go to these guru seminars and they're not making money in real estate. They're making money teaching you about real estate. None of them are making money in real estate. So it's, you're going there and I met you there and, you went on stage, told your story, how you did, how quickly you grew your team, how you hired everyone, how you didn't want to hire someone in the first place. And Andy told you, you're going to have to hire to grow. I went there and I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to join, and called my wife. We agreed. I signed up, and my first event in person was in Keystone.
Nice. Okay. So let's go back to that time. So you were figuring things out on your own. You were doing 500 to 800,000. You had an acquisitions rep and an assistant, and you knew that the assistant wasn't the right fit at that meeting. So you joined the group, and then I want to dig into kind of like hiring and the process from here, because it was just you and two other people. And now you're going towards, where are you now? Maybe let's fast forward and say, what does your company look like now? And then we'll go back and say, how did we get there?
Okay. Yeah. We have 17 people right now in the company. We did, I think our 2019 was about 3.5 million, mostly wholesale fees in gross profit. And yeah, so we're at 17 people with our newest hire that we just hired last week.
Okay, so 17 people, and we talked pre-show. Most of those people are W-2 employees, and it's a mix of commission and kind of salaried staff members, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so how did you go? Like, what were some of the steps that you took from that first Flip Hacking Live event to growing to a company like this? Granted, it's been about a year and a half, right?
Yeah. So the steps, the first 3 months of being in the group, I did very little with it. I was too busy to, so I'm like, I sign up, I look in the materials online, and I'm like, okay, I don't have time to go through all of this and do all of these steps. I spent maybe 3 months until I went to Keystone in person, just kind of dealing with the fires that were in front of me all the time and not taking the steps I needed to do. And also, I think I am in a way that the typical entrepreneur where, I'm always thinking of a million ideas, but I'm not the best at getting that detailed work done. So I wanted to wait until I had, a proper hiring training manual done before I hired, because I had failed in hiring multiple times in the past. And so I wanted to have all that done. And I went to the Keystone meeting and I was talking to the coaches, and they were telling me, well, one of them told me, maybe you're not the right person to do this. Maybe what you need to do is hire a sales manager who has experience in hiring and training people. And now I've grown a lot as someone who now I know so much more about hiring, about using the right tools, using Culture Index, for example, and even just the DISC profile. At least it's a little more basic, but at least using that to understand people's motivations and their skills. It helps so much in getting the right person into a role, and even just understanding how to motivate them when they are in the role, because it's an understanding that everyone's a little different, and you have to play with the right, my two main acquisition reps right now. The 17th was our third acquisition rep, which she hasn't started yet. But the two acquisition reps I have very different motivations, very different styles. And so I need to make sure I'm motivating them in the right ways and using the right language even with them. So Keystone, it was hire a sales manager. Well, I did that. I put out an ad. I got very lucky. I got an awesome sales manager. I did the culture index, looked at his profile, understood from that what his advantages would be and where he had issues. And I hired someone with a great experience in hiring and training people. He had hired and trained, hundreds of people. So I brought someone on with a ton of trainings. I brought someone on to fill in my weaknesses. And now with him, I've worked with him to hire all of these people on the team, grow it out. I always had the vision for the company, but I needed people in there to start implementing everything I wanted to do.
Okay, so the first 3 months felt like it was drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of information there, so you were just kind of trying to digest that. Came to the first meeting, so you started to understand what the group was all about, some of the materials, taking some of the things and implementing them yourself, but realizing, saying, hey, I'm not going to hire until I build out an entire training manual, the structure of it. I can create the system to hire people and do it the right way. So you're kind of kicking that can down the road, knowing you need to do it, but saying, I'll get to it when, it's interesting because I heard somebody talk about the Manana Principle, I'll get to it tomorrow, manana. And it's always the next day, right? And us as entrepreneurs, that is one of the most challenging things that we have is this manana effect, tomorrow. And I still do it on a regular basis. It's the things that I don't really want to do, because you talked about the weaknesses, and it's the kind of stuff that I just don't want to get to. It's not things that I'm excited about. And hiring really, the hiring isn't that bad, but it's building out the system and process. I'll say you're hired, here's your salary, but then getting their W-9 or their I-9 and the W-4 and onboarding them and getting all the administrative stuff about it drives me nuts. And it's probably the same way with you.
Even just for hiring, what I would have done before, what I was doing before is I'd throw up an ad, I'd look at a few resumes, bring a few people in, and if someone seemed good enough, I'd fill the seat. It wasn't about really looking for those A players or really taking the time to hire. But, we all know how much it costs you to have to put the wrong hire into a company. And that's what I was doing. And even my first hire, I hired an assistant who was with me 3 months before she quit. And for her, it was like drinking from the fire hose. This was before I joined the group. I just tried to throw a little bit of everything at her. I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing all of these things. Why can't you? Here's a bunch of things for you to do. Didn't work. So actually, I then stayed on, did all of that stuff, hired just the acquisition rep. I said, your job, you're taking the phone calls. So he was being lead manager and acquisition rep. You're taking the phone calls, you're going on appointments. This way I can increase my marketing. I'm going to take care of everything else. And then I've hired other people. Once I've had him trained up, I've hired other people to start taking those other hats off of me.
Okay, so your key hire in this case was that sales manager, which it sounds like. So I'm guessing that you had a bit of a sales. You had like that's where you needed help was in sales, like hiring sales reps and acquisitions people and disposition. Is that right?
I think that was part of it. It was just hiring in general, and it was being able to kind of supervise the acquisition reps.
So some accountability on the acquisition side.
Yes.
Okay. So bringing that guy in, and then let's go to the point where you've actually built out a system for hiring, because you said something just now, like it costs a lot of money to hire the wrong person. And Nate and I just gave a presentation recently, and we did some research, and there was a paper that was written that talks about it costs you 15 times their annual salary to hire the wrong person. 15 times. So you could do the math. If you got a $300,000 or $30,000 a year employee, it can cost you $450,000 to hire the wrong person potentially. So I don't want to scare people away from hiring, because in the beginning, I did the same thing you did. Put up an ad, take some resumes, and throw them in there. And it was what I needed at the time. Now we have a system around it. We have an actual structure for it. You mentioned A players also. We turned down A players because we just hired 3 A+ players recently. And I saw the sheet that we all put together, and it said A+, like these are the people that we're hiring. We're basically saying no to people that most companies, that would be their best salesperson in the company or their best employee. And we've gotten our process down. So what I want to do is jump into that, because I think what that'll do is it'll help a lot of folks that are listening figure out, how they get to that point of hiring the right person. Because a lot of people think that I can't afford to hire A players because I don't have a huge salary to pay them. A players pay for themselves. And a lot of times you'll be surprised. They want to work for a good company. There's a lot of diamonds in the rough out there. There's a lot of people that are looking for a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 job without. The thing that I find with A players is you don't want to put a ceiling on them. Don't cap them somewhere, because if you cap them, then they're not going to see an opportunity there. I'd love to bring in an A player for $35,000, $40,000 and let them grow into a $100,000 role down the road and show them how capable they are. So what's your system look like? What are some of the things that you guys do or did at that time? You hired a sales manager. Like, what did he bring in there? And now what are you guys doing?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll talk about what we're essentially doing now. We post either directly on Indeed or there's another place we post. Anyways, it also pushes onto Indeed. I forget. I can't think of it right now. But we post directly on Indeed, and we'll filter through all the candidates we get. We will look through their resumes very quickly. And I think you use the profiling much more often than I do. What we do is anyone who's going to come in for an in-person interview has to fill out a DISC profile. For our more key hires, because we've never signed up for Culture Index and Predictive Index ourselves, we've asked for key hires. I've asked other members of the group who use those services to help us out on looking at them, on running them through their system. But for most of our hires, we just run them through the DISC profile. So look at their resume, narrow it down drastically from there, then get on a phone call with them. And again, all of this right now, my former sales manager, now he's my COO, Corey. So Corey posts the ad, he vets the resumes, he calls them on the phone, and then he narrows that down and sets up in-person interviews. And so what happens with the in-person interviews is Corey will do a preliminary interview, and if he likes them, he'll call me into the office to continue the interview. And so if I don't hear from him, he didn't like them. So that's a really useful thing for me right now. It saves a lot of my time. If he brings in someone, doesn't like them in person, I never have to talk to them or spend my time meeting with them. So I like that. But I do like the first time they're there in person to meet with them myself to also see if I agree with his judgment on that person for that role.
Okay, so just so I understand, and I'll read this back to you. So Indeed And then you get their resumes. You'll kind of, Corey will screen through their resumes. Then he'll do a preliminary short phone interview to see if they're qualified. And that's probably like on and off real quick. How long would you say that phone interview is? Any idea?
If they're bad, 3 minutes. If they're good, 15.
Okay, so short phone interview. Then they'll get a personality profile. So if it's not a key hire, disc test. And then they'll do an in-person interview. If it's going well, then he'll call in you, the CEO, to continue that interview. And then are you hiring them right there on the spot? Or are you then kind of getting together, the two of you, to decide who your top candidates are for that position? And then what's the next step?
Yeah, so usually we'll let them know, we'll make a decision. You know, if we interview someone, we'll make a decision within the next week or so. And we'll let them know, you know, if we like them, we'll let them know that we will be letting them know by, let's say, the end of the week. Whenever we know we have other interviews scheduled, but we typically try never to hire someone without having at least interviewed other people, even if their resume is great. We're expanding into the Montreal market, so the person we just hired, we've been trying to hire for that role since October. We just didn't want to hire the wrong person into that role.
So that's like 6 months, just to give everybody an idea of that. So, and you and Corey are then kind of crunching them down and deciding, or is it just kind of you two just having a conversation and saying, I really love them, let's bring them on?
Yeah, so lead manager, for example, will be like lead intake. We'll have a lot more candidates. That'll happen much faster, like within 2 weeks, right? We'll interview a bunch of people within a week and let them know at the end of the week. So yeah, there we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, like I was in on these 2 or 3 interviews. They were good. Here's why we think this person is good or not. And then this is the person we want to hire. And also sometimes it comes down to their expectations too. Like you might have someone who seems great, but their expectations on what they should be making or how much they should be working doesn't fit into what we want. So we might choose someone who maybe doesn't have the same level of experience, for example, but has a much better attitude that's going to fit in better with our culture. So we consider that. But then like the Montreal rep, it was finding the right person. We've interviewed a lot of people that was kind of like they're okay, they're good, they're not great, and we're going to a new market. There's some complexities there because it's a very French-speaking market, which we don't have in our other markets at all. So there was that aspect of it to add in. So we really needed the right hire. So that was continually looking for the right person. And then when we finally found the right person, it wasn't evaluating them against anyone else. We just agreed that this was the right person for our company.
Nice. So we're pretty similar. Our process is we put everything on Indeed now, and then we write that post towards the personality profile. So even backing up a little bit, we kind of define the personality profile that we want, and then we'll write adjectives in there that attract those personality profiles. We post on Indeed, and then we look at the personality profile before we look at the resume. So since we do have access to some like the culture index, we run them through there. We look at their profile, and then we'll look at their resume. They have to have, sales in their resume if we're going to hire them for salespeople. So then we look at that, but then we do the initial phone interview, and then we'll do a more deeper phone interview, and then we'll do a Zoom chat like this. We're all virtual, so we don't have an office in person, stuff like that. And then I really don't get on the call with them anymore unless they're a key hire. So Nate pretty much handles all of that. So if it was a lead rep, our lead intake manager would interview, and then Nate would do the final interview. Now, if it was a managerial level position, then I would probably talk to them just to see if they're a core value fit at the end, just to put my stamp of approval. But they've already have talked to 3 different managerial level people inside the company before I would talk to them. So the only way they wouldn't get through me would just be if there's something that really stood out. Like it just didn't see, there was some red flag that popped up. But I haven't really talked to anybody in a while now. It's probably been like 9 months since I talked to somebody, and we've been hiring a lot of folks. So Nate is pretty much taken over for that for me, and I'm sure Corey will for you at some point very soon, I would guess. Okay, what are some kind of like lessons learned that you felt over the past year and a half of hiring a lot of people? So what are some things that you maybe would go back and do differently, or what are some things that you think you guys did really well?
So I also want to add, you can get lucky. Like my first acquisition rep, who's still with me, he had no sales background. he did video editing before, and he was kind of looking to get into wholesaling, and that's how I found him. I host a RIA meetup in Toronto, and that's where I met him and ended up hiring him. He had no sales background. He's done amazing, but I would never hire him again because his lack of sales background. If just in hindsight, it worked out great. But knowing what I know now about hiring, it's taking way too much of a risk. So definitely experience matters a lot. Personality profile matters a lot. And the two need to work together. My COO, who's done amazing things for my business, he has a little bit of a higher eye, like in the disc, let's say, than you normally hire for a sales manager. He's a little higher on the interpersonal level, which can be risky because someone with that profile may end up talking too much, not really getting work done because all they want to do is talk to people. They're too nice to people, that kind of thing. However, when you mix that in with their experience and what they've done, you don't work 10 years as a sales manager at a company and grow a massive sales team unless you're actually good at the role. So when you combine those two together, that's when you find the right thing. Experience mixed with personality, but one doesn't work alone. And one can counteract the other to a certain extent. Just can't be the wrong personality type and it can't be the wrong experience, but a balance of the two can help find the right person. So I would say that's a big part of it.
Well, let me jump in there because I think there's some people who may have just like keyed off in that, and I know I did, because you said you could get lucky, but you wouldn't do it again. And I think it's really important to know that, because once you have a process set up, it can seem attractive to go around your process to bring somebody else in. When you don't have a process, like you might have found that like needle in a haystack, right? And you, like you said, got lucky. But when you might miss out on that lucky, like the oddball home run or the perfect shot, when you have a process set up, I may have weeded that person out because they didn't have the personality profile or the resume. However, what's going to happen is I'm going to have something that's repeatable, and I'm going to have a lot more good candidates, like great candidates, than I would if I was just swinging from the hip, like shooting from the hip, like you were doing before. So when you think about it, you might miss out on that 1 in 100 kind of candidate, but you'll get the cream of the crop that you want from the rest of them. So the likelihood of you succeeding is a lot higher with an actual process set up. So I've seen that too in my business. And the other thing that you mentioned is like Corey's personality profile might not exactly fit. And frankly, if you had a process like mine is set up, he would have never made it through the screening of mine. So what I found is, if you already have somebody on the team and they don't fit and it's not right, like based on what you see on paper, that's like the 90% solution a lot of times. So we did an event called Dash 2 where we did the CEO COO event, and I had a couple people come, and their COOs or the people they have in their organization didn't fit the exact mold of what we were talking about. And so they started freaking out a little bit. I remember having conversations after the event with some people, and I said, look, this is not like black and white. Okay. It's not like this or nothing. This person is completely capable of doing the job. They've done a great job. You give them the opportunity, see how they do. All we're saying is like the 90% solution is potentially this. There are plenty of people that can do the role. Just my question and challenge to them is, if their personality profile doesn't fit, like how long are they going to do it for before they don't love it anymore, or they get burned out, or they feel like they're doing something outside of what they really want to do. So I think, all of these things that we're talking about, this is the system that we set up, the process that we go through to make it repeatable and make it comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges or apples to bananas, because then everybody's getting different questions. Everybody's going through a different process. So we create it so it's easy for us. Like this system it spits out top producing talent on a regular basis, and it's repeatable. So anyway, what are some other lessons more? I just wanted to jump in there because I think you said a couple things that I've seen in my experience over the past few years, and even people that we've worked with that have been, concerned that the personality profile doesn't match what we think it should, right? But they are doing a phenomenal job, and they still are. Like there's the people. I mean, it's been almost a year since we did that event, maybe 6 months now, and the people are doing great jobs in those businesses. So, what are some other lessons learned and things that like maybe some cautionary tales or something that you would give, some things you screwed up.
Well, I was just gonna mention. I was actually gonna use those words, cautionary tales. I can think of two candidates end of last year, or two employees that we had hired. One was an assistant that I'd hired kind of before I really implemented my current process, and her attention to detail it bothered me because it wasn't as good as it needed to be, and certain things that I considered important were getting missed. But she was also helping on some projects where we kind of needed her, didn't want to train someone else, so she was kind of deemed good enough. And then we had another person who we brought her on when we were growing quickly, and we were setting up like our CRM and integrations and all this stuff. And she was Eastern European in Canada on a work visa, and had a good like tech background. So we kind of brought her in for essentially IT and integration, that kind of support to do that work for us. And we were hoping she'd go on to be able to manage more projects and things like that once we were more set up on our systems. And so she was with us for, I don't know, 6 months. And we knew it would end, like where we wouldn't need her for that kind of stuff. And we realized while she was working there, yeah, kind of good enough. It was harder also to, I think, tell some of in the interviews, like there was a little bit of a language barrier, and we weren't sure how significant that would be. But anyways, what happened with these two is they kind of both started working off of each other. Both of those people asked for raises, and none of our good people who are doing awesome ever need to ask for a raise. Like our main lead intake, like the manager of our lead intake, we've given her multiple raises without her ever asking because she's so good, and our commission people never ask for a raise because they make a lot of money on commissions when they're good. They don't need to ask for a raise. So these people came to ask for a raise, and because they were only like good enough, they weren't great. They weren't people that like we would have hired again if we knew. We didn't want to give them raises. So we said, no, we're not going to give you a raise right now. And they both started talking. They started talking to our dispositions person, saying, they'll never value you properly. They'll never pay you what you're worth. And they really started kind of poisoning the well, or trying to poison the well, because they were bitter. And they were bitter because they weren't good at their jobs, so we didn't value them. We value all the people who are really good in our company. They weren't. So the lesson there was we knew they weren't great for the role, and we should have let them go sooner before we gave them a chance to start poisoning the well and causing problems for the rest of the team. And they both left around the same time, and we're so much better off without them.
So what stopped you from letting them go earlier than that?
It was, I guess, an element of laziness. It was, we have to retrain someone in the same role. They're kind of doing the job good enough. So, is it worth going through the whole process, firing them? I knew one of them needed the money, but is it worth the whole process, firing them to get someone who's 20% better? Because that's the difference between good and great. It's not like someone's at 20% productivity and someone else is at 95. It's someone's at 70% where you'd like them to be. That's still not, 70% still sucks. It's not good. So the thing was they were getting some of the work done we needed. And because we had grown so quickly, we needed bodies doing the work. And we didn't want to take the time to get rid of them, train someone who would be better, like bring someone in who was better, do that whole hiring process, and then train them properly. I think it was just, we were busy with a lot of work, and I'll say, a bit of laziness. We didn't want to go through it.
Well, I think we've all been there. Like if you have anybody that works for you, you know that it's a lot of work to bring somebody else on, rehire them, train them, do all those things, go out on the search again, all that stuff. And so a lot of times we accept mediocrity. We accept the B and C players because you're like, just like you said, there's a body in there. It's like a warm body in there doing the work. That's what we need. And but you mentioned a couple things, and I use this term a lot in my company too. That poison the well kind of thing is what they do is they start spreading, like they just spread negativity, and they even start this like inner office politics stuff, like this these rumors, or they'll start, and what they do is they start poisoning the A players. And it's we used a quote in one of the presentations recently. It's not what you preach, but what you tolerate, right? And so what happens is you start tolerating okay good enough, like you said, good enough is exactly what you said. Red flags are starting to go up. And what happens is the really incredible workers, they start seeing that you're tolerating that and they go, I don't know why I work so hard when, I mean, I could look what they do over here. They don't actually do what they say they're going to do. They say that this person's not living up to their full potential and they're letting them stay around. Like, and they just look at it like it's just kind of a hobby. It's not just this professional team, right? So I look at it as a professional team, like a Super Bowl winning team is what I want to create. And we got to put our money where our mouth is. And we got to make sure that the A players, because A players don't want to play with B and C players. A players want to play with other A players. So you're going to start like averaging and leveling up your company if you don't get rid of those people and get rid of them quick. I mean, you took 6 months to hire a sales rep now. I'm sure you don't tolerate this stuff anymore. And you started to learn the fact that you've got to bring people in. We will all lift up to that highest level, and the people in your company start averaging out at some point. And you want them to average out at an A plus, like really high level. And when that happens, the other thing we don't think about is our workload goes down. We don't have to manage those people. We don't have to put up with the crap. We don't have to deal with all the problems that they bring, because those people that are poisoning the well are just, they're bringing problems. It's just constantly something going on. Like you mentioned, they need the money. There's all this stuff. They always have some problem, something that comes up that you have, it's your fault, not their fault, things like that. So I've seen it in my company too. It can be really tough. But then you think about the pain of putting up the ad, hiring somebody, but just think about the future. Like, it's all about the future state, the what if. Imagine yourself putting that rock star person in that doesn't have to come to you every 5 seconds for requests and information, or your team, or like your management team. And all they do is bring down everybody else's workload. So if you can get rid of that and kind of cut off that poison, things are going to get a lot better, even if you might have to jump in and do a little bit extra work for a couple months of finding that person, hiring them, and bring them on. It's well worth it. I've been there too. Okay, so there's probably, like, you have 17 people that work for you. I got 15 people that work for me in this company. They're probably wondering like how we're coping with all this stuff. There's a lot of people out there in the world right now that are firing their staff. They're shutting their doors. People are saying that real estate they're not sure where it's going in the future. So how are you handling that? And like, you were growing and scaling up to this point of, the end of March, middle of March, whenever it was that all this stuff started happening with COVID-19 and coronavirus and things. And so, like, how did you react to that? And what are some of the things that you're thinking about going forward?
So going into this, we've been growing a lot. We've really bloated our company level expenses, and we have COO, operations manager. TC was a recent hire. We have a development manager. We have an in-house accountant. So kind of company level, we're bloated so that we can handle growth. But with the way the market's going, how much do you really want to grow? Right? So, because we had 2 acquisition reps until last week, and we wanted to get to 4 and be able to handle all of that volume properly. So we needed the management level to get there. So we bloated up this level. I want to do everything I have to do to keep the business alive, but we're not at the point, anywhere close to the point where I'm worried about losing the business. Nothing close to that. So what's important until then, which I don't think we will get to that point, but the most important thing now is ensuring that our employees know that we have their back. It's not going to be like, oh, you know what, well, maybe things are going to be a problem, so let me start firing a few people. And then we'll see if we can just replace them. We're trying to build a team where people want to work together and where they don't feel disposable as much as possible. As long as you do good work, you're with us. We're going to have your back, you have ours. So I'm not in a position where I want to let go of anybody right now. I understand if it's the difference is we forecasting out, we see that we're going to need to, or we're going to be in trouble and have to let go of a lot of really good people. I will do that. I understand, you have to do the right thing to keep the business alive. We're not at that point. So for us, like, we've seen our buyers pull back drastically on acquisitions, but in buying from us on our wholesale deals, but we've been buying at deeper discounts. We're still getting deals. We're not getting the same spreads on our assignment fees that we were before, but we're still getting deals. Business is still going. So I'm not really too worried. I think there's going to be huge demand for our wholesale deals when things ramp back up. I think there's going to be massive demand. I think there's going to be pent up demand. So, and we do really well when there's a lot of demand from buyers. So, and we've been kind of trying to tempt our buyers. We sell a property at a bit of a small assignment fee. We're sending out, we flooded them last week with like 5 different sold emails, just letting them know, hey, people are still buying stuff. This one sold, this one sold, this one sold, this one sold. They might be selling at 20 grand under asking, but we're sending out those sold messages, letting people know, hey, we've got these other properties, get a move on if you want something, because people are still buying, and trying to create a bit of that demand. So the focus right now is on dispo. Our dispositions rep, she's done a great job of, like, the market for us before this COVID thing was just insane. People were fighting over our deals. We're getting multiple offers on pretty much all of our assignment deals. If it was a good deal, we were getting multiple offers. Now, so her job before was how to maximize what we can get. When you have people beating down the door, how to manage all of those people, get the most motivated people in to view the property without, having 20 groups through knowing the seller, because most of ours are owner occupied. And then managing all those people to see who's willing to pay the most, bidding them up. That was our process until now. But now our buyers don't want to bid. They don't want to compete. So now we're trying to change what we've trained our buyers as, training them, hey, come in, just make us an offer. Whatever it is, if you're going to bother analyzing the property, just make us an offer, even if it's below asking. Can't promise we can accept it or that we will accept it, but let's try to get that interest, get them into the door in the first place, because that's where we were struggling. So that's what we've been pushing on right now. And it's been a big shift in our dispo process. Acquisitions, we've changed to virtual calls for a lot of our appointments. And then if we get close or we get it under contract, we then go in person to get our photos and videos. But we're still buying lots of houses.
Awesome. So I love what you started off, that employees need to know that you have their back. So, and I totally agree with that. There's some folks either in our industry or other industries that are just like letting people go, slashing overhead and expenses. And for me, the first call that I had with my team was, let's celebrate. Like we had this Inc. 5000 list in Florida come out, and we were number 7 in Florida on the Inc. 5000 list for growth for 2016 to 2018. And I called them all on the call, and they probably thought I was going to talk about coronavirus or something, or hey, the things have changed and we're going to be laying some people off or something like that. They showed up to this like announcement from the boss, and I said, hey, you guys are doing an awesome job. Big pat on the back. We had a huge party on a Zoom call, and that was it. They said, hey, we're going to navigate this stuff together. I got you. I'm really, there's not any other people that I'd rather go into something like this with than the team that we have. I told my team, I said, we're no different 2 weeks ago than we are today. We're still the same rockstar team that we were 2 weeks ago. So don't ever forget that. And I'll tell them that every month that I'm on a call with them going forward. Is the marketplace may be uncertain and all these things, but I'm certain in your ability as teammates and what we can do together. So now we just have to figure out how to do it and how we navigate through this together. So I think that's really, really important. And then I love that I pulled out I wrote down sold emails and highlighted it, because we used to send those. I feel like we've gotten complacent and lazy recently. We've said, oh, we just sent an email out and there's 20 people that want to see it and everybody wants to pay over asking price. And we've gotten a little bit lazy and complacent on that stuff, on dispositions. So we got to get proactive now about going out there potentially and do it. I saw, we had some pretty good assignment fees come through today, in fact. So it's nice to see that stuff's still moving. We're making some slight adjustments. So how do your employees feel about the business? Do they treat it like it's Luc's business and it's Luc's money, or do they treat it like a team? Like this is a community business that's operating and making us all money, so we're all chipping in and giving everything that we got.
I think people see it as a little bit of like a family business. There isn't that like, oh, it's corporate. Like let's just it just expense it, whatever. It's corporate. There isn't that, but I don't know that it may be the same buy-in that you have on your team, where it's we're in this. This is our our business. I don't know that we have the same buy-in that you do, because I see it with your people. I think certain people on the team really see this as like, certain people on my team just either they've never made anything close to this much money in their life, or they've never enjoyed what they've done this much in their life. We have really fun people on our team. They really like talking to each other. They really like working together. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think the turning point for me, and I felt like because I always struggle with this. You know, as the business owner, you talk about let's go, let's make more money, and like how much do you share behind the scenes with everybody else? Like, do you share the gross profit number? Do you share the expenses? Do you share all this stuff? And how open are you? And I always held that really close to my chest, the finance side of things, because it made me nervous. And I felt like when I actually did share like everything that we were doing, what we were making, some of the struggles and the wins that we had, whether it was personally or professionally in the company, what it did was it got their buy-in more. I think it's our duty as the owners of the business to get our staff's buy-in as much as possible. Like as the visionary, like getting the team's buy-in is so important. And I think the more that we keep them like siphoned off or siloed, or we don't share that stuff, then the more they feel like they're kind of in the dark. So when I let them all in and just basically showed them everything, even when we were struggling, like some of the bad months that we had, and then some of the good months that we had, it really kind of brought them in and gave the buy-in. So that's what I love is it hasn't become, it's not my business anymore. It's kind of like our business. It's like the company is separate from me. And I think when we do that, it allows us to really get them to understand things and treat the business like it's like it is the one employing you. I'm not the one employing you. Hopefully they see if we actually have some struggles or some financial issues coming up, that they might like individually have to take pay cuts and say, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut to keep the business going. They don't say, well, Bill, you just want me to make less money so you can make more money. That's not the case at all. Like we want to keep the business alive. Like the business is this whole totally separate entity. And I think once we start thinking that way, and if we believe that, then other people can start believing it. Because that was the struggle that I had to get past, especially in times like right now. I wrote down like, what are some things that you're thinking about? Because some of the things that I'm thinking about is having a contingency plan if revenue goes down, 20%, 30%, a couple months in a row. I'm willing to dip into my pocket up to a point. And then there's going to be a point where I'm going to start having to make some tough decisions inside the business, whether it's expenses, whether it's human capital, some of the staff, things like that. So that's the thing for me. Those are some of the things that I'm thinking about, because I went into this. It's interesting. Like 3 months ago, I was like, this is nothing. Like, I'm not worried about this. And then it became like, this doesn't really feel that comfortable. And now it's kind of like, well, we'll just kind of see how long this goes and how things go and what data I can collect and what adjustments I need to make. But I'm not making any like adjustments without facts, not these like what ifs. So I'm going to get ahead of it. I'm willing to calculate the risk and the reward down the road. And then if I have to dip in my pocket for a couple months, I just have to make sure that that's sustainable and it's comfortable for me as the owner. And the team is surely going to know, I'm going to tell them that I am making payroll out of my own bank account or the owner equity inside the company. Like the company is taking money that should be mine for all the risk and things that I've put up over the past few years to make payroll for this long. But after that, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I'm assuming you're doing some of the same things.
Yeah, some of it. Like your thing about telling everyone, the gross profits and things like that. We've decided on our side that people who have control over it, control over gross profits, who get paid based on it, they will know what we're making on those. But for example, our lead intake team, they get a flat bonus per contract that they set the appointment for. So we decided not to share the amount of it. And sometimes, we've had a lot of large assignment fees. I wouldn't want there, and again, your team might be different than mine, but I wouldn't want there to be any kind of like, oh, well, I got $200 on this and you guys got 100,000. If we got a very large assignment fee, it shouldn't matter to them that we're congratulating them, treating them on for getting the deal done, whether it's $1,000 or 100,000 on the assignment fee. They're treated the same way for it. So that's how we've been on that. But then again, our acquisition reps, dispositions, much of our team does get, percentages of gross to some extent, and they will know what we're doing as gross and part of the reason they get percentages on it as commissions because they have a way to influence it. They can affect it, and therefore they should know what it is, what they're trying to affect, and understand they're making more money when they do affect it. So,
yeah. I totally agree. I always struggle with that, especially with the person who's getting paid, let's call it $12 an hour and a $100 bonus on a transaction, and they see that we made $50,000 on the spread. Because I struggled with that for a really long time. And what I'll give anybody advice out there who's listening is do what you feel comfortable with, and then grow into something more than that. Because I'd say for the first 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't even let anybody see the deal tracker. Like, I was the only one that could see the deal tracker. That included all the assignment fees, all the flip fees, all that stuff. And I didn't want them to know that we were grossing 1.3 million. Like, we just didn't have those as targets. That just wasn't something that anybody knew but me and the bookkeeper. And so as I got further along, what I realized was it's just seeing that, like, it went from not seeing anything to then seeing me on stage and listening to me on podcasts and stuff like that, and on my Facebook page. So they saw that we were a 7-figure business. And so then it became from not seeing any of it to saying, oh, we're making 2 million. I made $30,000 last year. What's up with that? They don't see any of the expenses, any of the overhead, all that stuff. So now I went from being like not transparent at all to being totally transparent. So now they see that we have $1 million payroll a year, and we have so much expenses. And this month we actually lost money. So like, I actually lost money this month, but they got paid. So there's lots of different, I went from like one side of the spectrum to the other. And now everybody, I mean, I don't like flash up the P&L every month for everybody to see on our monthly call. However, in our L10 meetings, and it does flow down to everybody else, is, hey, we didn't have the best month, or we had a really good month, or we had this. And then, they'll see, I give them like targets that every quarter, if we do this, then this will happen. Maybe our Christmas party, you'll get, if we hit this number this year, we'll have a $50,000 Christmas party, and it's pretty much all cash and gifts and stuff to them. So they have stuff to shoot for where they get to see the return on it. But we're definitely on the other end of the spectrum with transparency now, because I feel like when they understand that and they see the risk that the business is taking, and they see all these other things, and it's unplugging me from the business, it allows them to work a little bit harder, understand the inner workings, and really feel like they're a part of it. Like, I feel like that's what's really allowed me to get the buy-in that I have. And so that's my recommendation for anybody out there, is just kind of think about where you want to be and where you want to end up, and you'll evolve over time. And some people are very open with their folks. Some people realize that, hey, maybe the person who makes $12 an hour shouldn't see the bottom line of the company and all that stuff, or, how much you take home. They're not going to, obviously there's certain people that don't want to show their tax returns because they see how much they make. So I'm pretty open when it comes to all that stuff. You can ask anybody inside the mastermind group. I actually just did a presentation and showed 2 months of my P&L. I showed my equity balance sheet, and I showed kind of the percentages of where all of our people, our marketing, our overhead, all that stuff share. So I'm pretty open with it. Anybody can see what we make. And so for all you guys that are out there, they're like, oh, Bill only talks about his gross profit number. Well, I never know what your guys are actually making. Well, that's the only way you really can compare apples to apples in this business, in my mind. Like, a Target doesn't show their entire balance sheet and profit and loss statement. You know what size business they are, so you can kind of see that. So that's step one. And then we just dig deeper and talk about it. I'm open to talk about all that stuff, especially inside the mastermind that we have.
I think it makes a difference of what you focus on when, because like, I'm still in growth mode. I'm focusing on gross profit right now, and still incentivizing my employees on gross profit right now, because I'm trying to grow to a certain point in a certain number. I want to be to a certain number of markets. And then I want to focus on efficiency and improving our margin within that profit. But, you can really, I think they say something like, you can't save your way to financial independence, and same thing in a business. If you make $50,000 a year, you're really great at cutting expenses, but how much can you really take home if your gross profit's $50,000 a year? Whereas if you get your gross profit to, millions of dollars, and then you focus on improving your efficiency and keeping more of that, I think that's the way I've decided to do it. I think it makes sense, but anyways, that's my philosophy on it. Focus on growing the gross profit. As long as you're making money, even if the margin's a little smaller, and our margin's not bad. But once we get to a certain point, then it's going to be improving the efficiency, trying to keep the same gross profit number, but increasing our margin, so our net profit increases. And I also want to say, the transparency that you were talking about, one thing that was I wanted to make sure none of my employees would have a concern about was I've been telling employees for a while now, Corey, my COO, is going to run my business. So, I might be helping train you on this part or something like that, but you have to understand Corey's going to be involved in these decisions because he's going to be in charge of the business when I'm out of the day-to-day. I'll be around as an advisor, but I'm not going to be in the day-to-day of the business, and basically letting them know that if they have a problem with that, then this isn't going to be the right company for them, because I'm not going to be there in the day-to-day. If they say, oh, well, I don't, that's not okay. You're just going to have us work for you and sit on your ass at home. I mean, I'll be doing, I'm not going to be sitting on my ass all day, but that's, the person needs to be okay with that. Same as you, Nate's running the business, you own the business. People need to be okay with that. And if they're not going to be the right fit.
Yeah, I agree. And like the thing that if anybody's thinking about hiring a COO, that needs to be set up from the very beginning. You need to tell them they're coming in here so that you can go out. And because you don't want them to resent you for that when you get a year or two into that relationship and they're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and you're working 2. I mean, that was the agreement from the beginning. That's why you came in. That's why you've done it. Nate and I have had that conversation multiple times. And so, think about that. And then the staff also, you got to make sure that they have the right relationship with that person and they don't see you like, we always talk about these like kind of end arounds where when mom says no, they go to dad or vice versa, and it happens a lot in the very beginning of bringing somebody on like that, any manager, any COO, anything like that. So, okay. I know we're kind of getting towards the end of our time. So I guess the biggest thing that I'm interested in is what do you see like when you're ramping up your business and you're growing and scaling this company, right? And then we have this kind of slowdown or this event that happened, right? And it's like, it really hasn't slowed us a ton yet, but it has a potential to do that. And there's a lot of uncertainty. So when you felt this uncertainty, like where did your mind go? Did it go to opportunity or did it go to fear, and why?
I think I had the fear for a couple days. Maybe I had one of those, Lionel Richie pity parties. But, I was watching, I think it was, right around the time where it kind of hit everyone. Oh, wow. Okay. This is something. I was like, what's going to happen? And I was less worried about the wholesaling business as much as, the rentals that we've kept where we have private financing as we finish renovations and things like that. I'm like, I want to make sure we can free up the capital there. But so I think it at first went to fear. And now the longer I've been in it, I've been seeing that we're going to be able to buy it at better discounts. And when we get through this, I just see an explosion. So I see this as a temporary blip. I mean, if this was a different situation, like, the start of the recession, 2008, different story. Now people might in hindsight say, oh, well, maybe this is going to be another big recession as well. I don't think that's the case. This isn't a real estate problem. This could affect the real estate market. I don't see this as a real estate problem. I think the way I see this, the way I see the buyer sentiment is that there's going to be a lot of demand for houses once they get a little more confidence in the market. And so I'm really excited for that because they're going to see that our buyers are going to see we've been going all through all of this. They're going to see that there's been big discounts, and then they're going to start coming back in trying to get those big discounts. And they're going to start bidding up those prices, and our assignment fees are going to go back to normal and maybe higher than normal. So I see the opportunity long-term. And right now for me, it's a matter of, I just want to break even over the next few months. I don't even care to make money. I'm not worried. We'll break even for a few months. And when this gets out of it, we're going to make a ton of money.
Awesome. I like that. I like that attitude. I've been kind of a foot on the gas through this. I was in the same way. I just wasn't sure, didn't think it was much. then I started saying, this is interesting. It feels a little bit, the uncertainty, I got kind of stuck in this like analysis paralysis mode, but just saying, look, I want to be the person who's still left standing. I saw a quote, you mentioned the pity party that Walter Bond shared at Flip Hacking Live. And he had one post that I saw recently that said, the people who, like, you keep going through this, you're going to come out and you're preparing to come out bigger, stronger than you went into it. And I said, that's exactly what we're going to do. Like, I want to continue through this, let it wash some folks out, unfortunately, out of the marketplace. Let's keep the professionals doing what they're doing. I think it's a great time for the pros, the people who have been doing it for a while, that have a team that have some cash that can withstand something for a while. You got the people who are just getting into it, who it's a great time to jump in, learn real estate, figure that out, have a side hustle, something going on. And then the people in the middle are kind of in that crunch that have to decide, like, can we push through this? Do we have to pull back a little bit? What does it look like? And through all that, we're going to determine kind of what shakes up. Andy and I talked about, we were in Costa Rica. We talked about, we're in the snow globe in real estate. Like, if you're any of you guys that have a snow globe at Christmas time, you've got the peaceful house, the whatever it is inside of your snow globe, and it's all peaceful. And then you shake it up and there's the blizzards flying around and everything's going crazy. And then you put it down and it just starts to settle again. So I feel like all the time there's problems that pop up and we're in the snow globe. We're just feeling like we're getting shaken around. And that's kind of what it feels like right now. But don't worry, like, at some point over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, that snow globe is going to be sat on the mantle and it's all going to calm down, and then we can keep going the way that we're going right now. So I'm excited for it. I think there's going to be some opportunity. We live in the distressed world. So the way I say it a lot of times is the houses aren't getting any distressed any more than they normally do every single day. Houses take time to get distressed. People can get distressed really, really fast. So we operate in two worlds, the distressed houses and the distressed people. And I do think, unfortunately, that there is going to be a lot more distress in the marketplace, but it gives us the opportunity to be there to help more people through their distress and all the problems that they're having. And that's really the job that we're in. That's what we do. We're people problem solvers. We just help the people. And so if distress is on the rise, that unemployment increases, credit scores go down, things like that, we're starting to see that we can help folks in distress. And if we can solve the problem, then we have the opportunity to add more value to the marketplace, make more money, and create more business. So that's what I'm excited for, helping more people and figuring out how to do that. And any problem, I don't know, problem solving was one of the 6 traits. And I love a good problem, a good puzzle, a good, like, move the cheese. I want to go figure out where it is, and I want to be the first one to it. So we're working on that right now. And I'm happy to be kind of connected with you because we're all able to do this together. Like, Luke, I can understand what you're doing. We can talk to all the other members of the mastermind group and try to figure it all out together and not have to feel isolated and on our own during a time like this, where we can, obviously, we just came out of a 2-day mastermind meeting where we're trying to lift each other up and figure out what's working and what's not working, and give presentations on all these different things to help us in our market and our business. So it's a really great time to be kind of plugged into a network like that, in my opinion. So let's see, before we go, I want to just talk about Flip Hacking Live real quick, because that's where you came in. You came to Flip Hacking Live, you saw that it wasn't the flip or flop kind of people that aren't doing it. You mentioned it's like real people that are actually in the business right now, which I pride myself on, the fact that, I'm running a business just like you guys. And that's where, all of the people that are, the real-time information, real-time data, all those folks are, helping inside the mastermind group, which I'm very thankful for. But like, what would you say to anybody who's thinking about going to this event? I know my hope is that we come out of this thing, people are going, oh man, they want something to reach towards. Like, October comes and they're ready to come down to Orlando. They're ready to come to an event like this. And we've been cooped up in our house or haven't been able to socialize. And it's almost like that carrot that you can dangle in the future to say, I got something to look forward to. And it gives us that push that we can keep moving. So I don't know, what do you think about the event? And then what would you say to somebody who's kind of on the fence about coming?
Well, so I'd start with, one of the reasons I was cautious to even go in the first place was I hate that, I don't want to fly to, I was in San Diego at the time. I don't want to pay to fly in San Diego, pay for a hotel, and then just spend, several days getting pitched at. I hate that. There was actually an event in Toronto end of last year that was advertised as like not a sales pitch, just gonna be great real estate knowledge. And it was just pitching from stage the entire time. And it just frustrates me so much. It's run to the back of the room and sign up for this course. And, you're paying to go to one of those events. Those are terrible. So the big thing I would say for anyone who had that mindset like me, who saw those kind of things, is this is not at all a pitch fest. I think you spend one of the days, you spend maybe half an hour just explaining what the groups are and giving people a chance. The entire rest of it has no sales pitch. It's here's what different people are doing. Like the last year I went, the most recent one, Ryan Smith's Elite Smith. I mean, that was genius. I don't take a lot of notes. I took so many notes from that. I've taken so many ideas, and there's so many of those things I can't even do in Canada. But I actually don't think enough of you guys are looking at the different opportunities when everyone's trying to do the same thing. You don't realize the opportunities you have when you go into that blue ocean and you're not competing with people, and you take ideas like Ryan's and just dive into this blue ocean. There's nobody else competing with you. You can get bigger wholesale fees because there's nobody competing with you on the same deals. You don't show up and there's 30 other postcards there, for example. So there's mixing in those strategies, learning from different people. Chris and Heather Logan there with their giant phone talking about how they're, these are real people, how they're actually doing it. They're doing mostly cold calling for all of their leads, and they went through it, how they're doing it. So you're going to go there, you're going to learn. That's very much an event that's like drinking from the fire hose. Here's like a ton of really successful people. Here's how they're doing it. Here's useful tips from them. And if you don't take away like a dozen different useful things that are going to make you money, you're really not listening. That's about it. So I'm obviously going to be there this year in October, assuming everything's back to allowing it, which I expect it will be. I hope it will be. I'm really happy I went. So again, I was nervous because I thought it'd be a sales pitch. When I got there, I actually remember I went with another friend from Canada, and he was like, "Luke, calm down." Because I was like giddy with excitement, because at home I go to these RIAs and I'm doing the most volume, and it was kind of boring in a way. It's like, I want to be around these higher level people doing more. And I was so excited to be there, and everyone I'm talking to, and they're really doing this stuff. They understand it. They're really doing it. They're really doing volume. They're really considering these problems on how to scale, how to grow, how to make more money, that I wasn't experiencing at all, like in my local RIAs, my local meetups. I wasn't seeing that. So I was thinking back to my first one. I was giddy with excitement. My friend was telling me, just stop, just Luke, calm down, just take it easy.
Yeah, well, I remember meeting you at that one. You were definitely ramped up. You were excited. You were pumped, and you were unforgettable because you were going around talking to everybody, trying to suck as much information out of each of us as you possibly could. And I think that's like, when you go to one of these events, that's your job. Like, go there, get as much information as you can. And like you said, this past year, like, we set it up such that even in the first 2 or 3 presentations, you should have 10 times the value from the ticket price and your travel and all that stuff. Just Ryan Smith, you nailed it. Ryan Smith's presentation. I was in the back of that thing I got notebooks full from him too. So he really brought it, and we're going to do the same thing this year. So I'm excited to see you there. I'm excited to hear about your new baby there. So that's how much longer,
She's due end of June. So, 2 months.
End of June, man, you guys are going to be in a different world. Your life will change for the better, but you'll never be the same person again. I'll tell you that. I remember when we had Will, I can't even explain that feeling to anybody who doesn't already have a child. So it's really hard to explain, but you'll know. You'll call me up right afterwards and say, I know what you mean now. Like, just looking at my child's eyes for the first time, just seeing that this is something that I helped create is just an amazing feeling. And you will be totally different.
You have 3 boys.
I have 3 boys, 5 and under right now. So yeah,
we're having a girl. So
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know that feeling at all. I couldn't take care of a girl. I have no idea what they're like. But I really think you're in for a whirlwind. She's going to have a great future with you guys. You've got an awesome heart. You're 2 incredibly smart and amazing people. And she's really lucky to have you guys. So good luck. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear about it. I can't wait to send her a little onesie from us and see you guys hopefully at Flip Hacking Live. And oh yeah, you can bring your kids. So bring your kids down. It's outside of Orlando. I'm bringing mine. We're going to go to Disney for the week after, and I'm confident. I start working on this about 7.5 months in advance of the event. So I'm already about a month and a half into the preparing, the planning. I've got a meeting this week on the agenda, the daily schedule and stuff. So we're working hard. We're putting in the time and effort into this already. And I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to roll out what we've got planned for you guys. I've got a couple cool surprises in order already. So you can go to fliphackinglive.com and grab a ticket. We do kind of adjust the prices on like a sliding scale. So depending on when this comes out, they go up over time as we get closer to the event and we start selling out an amount of tickets. There'll probably be hopefully about 1,000 other real estate investors there this year that you can network with, you can share ideas with from all over the country. Outside the country, we have some guys that come from South Africa. They're probably the furthest travelers. And then obviously Canada, Mexico, we've got a lot of people from kind of around North America. So really exciting event, 3 days of packed information, and I'd love to see you there. So you can go to fliphackinglive.com, grab your tickets. It's in Orlando, October 15th through the 17th. So hope to see you guys there. And again, like Luke said, it's not a pitch fest, it's value and content. And like you said, we do open the opportunity to come join our mastermind group, but it is a short period of time and it's not a big hard sell of why you should join. It's just, if it's for you, great. If you're like Luke, you're ready to stroke a check for $40,000 to jump into the 8-figure group the first day. And that's it. It's, I promise I won't charge you that much money this year. So come to the event, and I hope to see you guys there, and go to fliphackinglive.com and check it out. Luke, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know we went a little over. This was, I just couldn't, so much stuff like hiring, onboarding, lessons learned, some of the coronavirus stuff, especially for like bigger teams, bigger staff. Like, what are we doing? As you can see, he's got 17 people, I've got 15, and we still have the same number of people on the payroll. In fact, we hired 3 more people recently inside my company off 100% commission because we have a plan and we're sticking to our plan. And I don't see any reason not to personally. But again, judge your risk tolerance. Risk taking was another one of the 6 characteristic traits of being an entrepreneur. And we're like really heavy in taking risk and reward, balance those things out. But I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna be the guy that's out in the shrimp boat like Forrest Gump, and I'm gonna be weathering the storm while everybody else's shrimp boat is on the dock getting crushed through the storm, hopefully, so that at the end I can go bigger, badder, stronger than I came into it, and I can take over my share of the marketplace. And like Luke said, suck in all that opportunity and make bigger assignment fees, make more money on the back end. So Luke, thanks for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. Tell Jess I said hi. I miss you guys. I hope to see you in person very, very soon. So thanks, man.
Thanks so much, Phil. Thanks so much for having me.
See ya.
You've been listening to the 7-Figure Flipping Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. If you're ready to learn the house flipping and wholesaling strategies that are working right now in today's market, check out 7figureflipping.com.